Peace, family. This is Dr. Kia. It is March the 16th, 2022, and I already did one video earlier today, but I promised that I would come back and talk about Mr. T, the real president. I'm a bit tired today. I don't know what's going on. I know something is going on astrologically because one minute I'm feeling really great, and then later on this evening, I don't know, I've been feeling kind of testy. I'm like, Pruitt, get your attitude together. I don't know what's going on. I had this lower back pain. I'm like, look, I rebuke you, Satan. In the name of my ancestors, you got to flee. I call down healing right now, down in the back of my body. Y'all know how we used to go in at church. But yeah, I rebuke you, Satan, and all this pain that's trying to get into my body. We're going to talk today about some good news. And I know anytime I talk about good news, it makes me feel better. So peace, family, peace and prosperity to all of you. Again, this is Wednesday, March the 16th. Let's talk about Mr. T. He promised a day of reckoning. This was published on March the 13th, 2022. Just 3 days ago? Remember, we said there is something very significant about this time period between March the 11th and March the 15th, really the whole month. March, as my son told me, really is a month of war. So if you look at the word March, you say M-A-R, if you turn the M down upside down, which is also the same thing as a W, you see war or warch, or it's literally W-A-R. You can take off the CH. It's a time of war. So there's no coincidence that so many things have happened in March, or in fact that have happened during the Ides of March. And if you missed that video, just go back. It's the video before this one. You'll see all the events that occurred on the Ides of March. Historically, for the Romans, it was a day of reckoning, of reconciling the debt. Also, it is the day that Julius Caesar was killed, and so many other things which I discussed in my other video. Also, some people would say this is the beginning of the new year, not just the beginning of the spring, but the correct beginning of the new year in March, which makes all the sense in the world. You see, new life budding, you see plants budding, flowers budding, everybody's happy, the sun is out. So this is a really exciting time, not only in history, but for everybody. Being a new season, a new year, the Ides of March being a time when you reconcile debt. And it makes me wonder what else is going on here this day in terms of historically, as we know, were debts reconciled here? Are people deciding to go or return to the gold standard? We do know that Russia announced that they're going to go to the gold standard. So much has occurred during this time. We also have heard that the Taiwan situation was quietly resolved. So we knew that Russia had gone into the Ukraine, and what many people said was that they were actually bombing the biolabs there, the underground dams there, and they were bringing the deep state out of the Ukraine and returning this nation back to Russia, because those in the leadership role in the Ukraine were actually Germans and not Russians or Ukrainians. So and then we heard that Taiwan would be next. And so what happened, at least what we were told was going to happen, was China was going to go into Taiwan, get rid of all the dams, stage it to make it look like a war. But in reality, they were going to return Taiwan back to China. Now we're hearing now that a lot of that was done quietly or covertly, so there probably won't be a lot of attention being brought to that. And if you follow this movement and you've been in it for a while, like I have, you know that Israel is last. So I have a friend that is a Jew, and she always thought that her people came from Israel. And she told me, she said, Kia, I did some studying. I listened to some documentaries, but I also did some studying. And what I realized is all this time I thought I was better than everybody else because I'm supposed to be God's chosen. I'm Jewish. I am, our family is the most wealthy in the world. God loves us more than everybody else. And then I found out that really the so-called uh, God's chosen Jewish people that are over in Israel. She said, I realized we are actually Russian, and we're from northern, I think she said northern or eastern Europe, but she said we're from Europe. We're from Russia and those countries in that area. We're not necessarily God's chosen, but we went over into what she says it Pakistan, and we created that region, and we created our own area and said that we are the Jews. And then, certain of us amongst our group and wrote history books and Bibles and all that to say God love us more than other people. And she said, when I came to that knowledge and that information, it really caused me to be deeply depressed. She said, it amazes me how much we've all been lied to in order for some people to feel better than others and others to feel worse. So it was really interesting because maybe in her history, she would not have been allowed to be friends with me, being somebody who was brown skinned. I'm indigenous, but people would classify me as black, which you all on my channel know that black means bleak, pale, blank, slave. It's a legal status that means you have no standing in law. So in her history, she probably would not have been allowed to hang around me, but now we're really good friends. Thank God we don't buy into that foolishness. But she was just sharing with me how she realized that the people in Israel weren't necessarily, these all the things that the Bible had told us that they were. So Israel will be last. People are going to get upset when they learn that the Jews will leave Israel. Just like they were upset when South Afrikaners or the Caucasian people that went over into South Africa to become farmers, people got angry when they were forced to leave. But what they didn't know is that those people actually had a lease, a 99-year lease. The leaders of South Africa had it's crazy. They create contracts, and they allowed people to come into their country and it's crazy, and colonize and do what you call farming, and also to create this whole idea of apartheid. They made an agreement and allowed it through a 99-year lease. Well, when the lease was up, it was time for the people to return home. And what the news made it look like, and even, people on the ground even incited anger and rage and outrage so that it can be a racial division. And they made it look like, okay, they're being discriminated against, which in a sense they were, because they needed to go back home. The lease was up. The contract was up. In Israel, those people who are masquerading as Jews, their contract is up. The lease is up. It's time for them to go home. In the United States of America, the indigenous people are in control, and they were in control of this nation. And so the people that came to usurp authority from the indigenous peoples, the United States Incorporated, that corporation, their lease is up. And this is why we're hearing right now that the dollar is failing. This is why we're understanding that the economic system is crashing. This is why we're understanding that the United States Incorporated is bankrupt. This is why the Pope did motu proprio and sent a letter to President Obama in 2013 and said, our time is up. All those 3-letter organizations, the FBI, the CIA, the IRS, they all must cease and desist. He said that in 2013. He also said the court system and all those who work for the courts, the lawyers, the judges, they all must cease and desist. The police department. He was letting you all know that their time was up. But a lot of us don't know this because we don't know, what to read. We didn't know that this happened under the Obama administration. And he even said that the GAR, what's that? The Grand Army of the Republic, I think he said, would come and arrest these people on sight if they didn't cease and desist. So here we go, fast forward to 2020, we actually see these people being arrested, those of us who know where to look. And we know that there are military tribunals going on right now The Pope told us it was going to happen. We just didn't know where to look. So, having said that, let's get back into current events. This occurred March the 13th, and I've already told you March is a month of war. Look at MAR, turn it up, flip the M upside down, it's WAR is war. The 13th, this is the same time during the Ides of March season that George Floyd was allegedly killed. It's the same time that Breonna Taylor was allegedly killed. It's the same time that the coronavirus was unleashed. By the Ides of March, by March 15th, the Ides of March, a historically significant date, the coronavirus had spread through the entire country and probably the world, all 50 states. That is not a coincidence. So let's go. Trump promises a reckoning. A Mar-a-Lago source speaking to Real Raw News under promise of anonymity said on Saturday that President Donald J. Trump has spent much time in private counsel with his most trusted advisors ever since Russian Vladimir Putin sacking biolabs and freeing imprisoned children in the Ukraine. Y'all hear that? Told us right then that Vladimir Putin was sacking biolabs and freeing imprisoned children in the Ukraine. That's what's really going down in that area. Real Raw News was the first outlet to report a liaison between Trump and the Russian leader, a sentiment now echoed by many alternative news sites across the net. We've known that for a long time, that Vladimir Putin of Russia, President Donald J. Trump of America, and Xi of China were all working in cahoots or together to take down the deep state. But they're saying Real Raw News was the first to report it, and now a lot of alternative news sites agree. A lot of us have known that for many years. Trump has privately applauded Putin's resolve to cleanse the corrupt nation of bioweapon labs and child trafficking rings that spread it across the Ukrainian countryside at once after it declared independence from the USSR on August the 24th, 1991. Within months of the dissolution of the USSR, Western money squirted into the Ukraine like water from a high-pressure hose. Millions of dollars from the United States, from Germany, and Israel poured into the private coffer of then President of Ukraine, Leonid Kravich, who happily accepted American cash in exchange for allowing foreign powers to build bioweapon labs on foreign soil. Isn't it interesting that millions of US dollars, German dollars, and Israel money or dollars poured into the private coffers in the Ukraine? The German Nazis are the ones that are actually controlling the Ukraine right now. And we know that number 46 and his son were committing nefarious acts and accepting money from the Ukrainians. All this is information that we've known for a long time. On Saturday evening, shortly after Trump concluded a Save America rally in Florence, he told his inner circle that the United States would soon experience a very big reckoning, similar to what is occurring in the Ukraine. Trump said it was almost time for this reckoning, a time the nation will be made aware of what's really going on and the actions that he has taken to once and for all wage war against the deep state cabal, both in the United States and abroad. Now, while this may be hard to believe, he's been working alongside Putin and Xi Jinping to rid the world of not only the bioweapon labs, but to rid the world of the infestation of child pedo rings that have literally swamped the world. China says that the United States has set up biolabs in Taiwan too. And that's one reason they've shown interest in retaking Taiwan, our sources say. President Trump, he added, told his circle he has irrefutable proof that Vladimir Putin had indeed blown to smithereens 11 Fauci-funded bioweapon labs in central Ukraine. Trust me, will soon have an unbelievable reckoning here, the likes of which no one has ever seen before. It will be unbelievable, and the haters and losers and the lamestream media will deny it, but the truth will be made public, Trump reportedly said. Don't believe the fake news. I've never gone anywhere. I'm not coming back. I've been here all along, President Donald J. Trump said. Soon, very soon, the country will know the truth about what's really going on in Russia and the Ukraine. It will be tremendous. And the truth about 9/11 and so much more will be revealed. Those tremendous frauds are nasty hells of catastrophe, Trump continued. Amazing things will soon replace the despair and despondency so many Americans have faced, our sources said. So that's the news. You've heard it here. You can find that at realrawnews.com. And the name of this article is Trump Promises a Reckoning. It was published on March the 13th, 2020, 2 days before the Ides of March. That's it. I love you. Have a fantastic day. Make this new year glorious. Clean out all of your thoughts, all of the dirt, the filth, the sadness, the anger, anything, the fear out of your life, because you're moving from an old season into a new year and a glorious new reality. Peace. I love you. Bye.